Alrighty, so the PTB is finally live, and I've been able to test everything and all the changes to Unknown specifically. I'm not messing around with anything else because, you know, not my area of expertise, not my job. I'll leave that to the professionals of all the other killers that got changed, right? But just looking at Unknown and the perk changes that affect Unknown the most, I'm happy to say I was wrong about some of my initial concerns. Like, for example, Blurry Photo. I think Blurry Photo, the amount that they made base kit is just enough to where at long loops and specifically Shack, and this is the important one, Shack, you can play it without Blurry Photo as long as you have really, really tight hallucination placement and you get it perfect. That being said, I think Blurry Photo, the add-on, needs to do something completely else now, as much as I hate to say it, because that last 15%, the only time that really comes into effect in like a realistic scenario is when you're doing like that spirit kind of mind game where you're on one side of the palette, your hallucination's on the other side of the palette, and the survivor's on the hallucination side, and it becomes a game of chicken. If the survivor runs out, you teleport and you hit them. If you teleport too early, the survivor can vault across. But if you've got Blurry Photo, even if you teleport, as long as your ping is like somewhat slow, you or the survivor has slightly slower ping, you're going to be able to hit that survivor unless they have finesse, I believe it's called. Other than that, you're going to hit that survivor as they try and vault the palette, and that's really the only time you're going to get any value out of Blurry Photo. And I think having an add-on for basically that one specific scenario is not good. So Blurry Photo, I'm glad that I was wrong about it. You know, making it partially base kit wasn't going to affect it, or was going to make it to where you have to run the add-on anyways. I'm glad I was wrong about that. I'm glad that we don't have to run Blurry Photo anytime. I'm worried that Blurry Photo is going to become kind of a problematic add-on where it's really only good in that one scenario or some other really niche scenarios. It's still going to be a nice feeling add-on, but it's not something you're going to need to run, and I think it's going to have a negative impact overall for the game, which is super unfortunate. Since we're talking about add-ons, let's go ahead and talk about Vanishing Box. 81 seconds to spawn a hallucination is way too long. I put out a post about this, and some other people informed me of a mechanic that I somehow completely missed, where having weakened survivors does slightly increase the rate at which your next hallucination spawns, aside from the 10-second bonus that you get. However, this bonus, unless you have all 4 survivors weakened, is so minor and so minute that it really doesn't do anything, and it doesn't offset it, and you're still waiting a ridiculously long amount of time, especially if no gens pop and you get chases where you can only get M1 hits or whatever, because that does happen from time to time. 81 seconds for a hallucination feels awful, and it makes it super easy for survivors to do one full clear of your hallucinations, and then you legitimately cannot come back from that in terms of hallucination placement, unless they screw up massively, and that is not a good feeling to it. I think the 80% is way too harsh of a nerf. Personally, I would put it, I think 50%, you know, just kind of estimating, I think 50% would probably be good, maybe even 40%, because that would put it to where it's kind of offsetting the effects of Vanishing Box, and it is punishing for having a super slow moment, but it's not literally crippling like it is currently, which is really my problem with new Vanishing Box. I'm glad they're trying to do something that isn't a flat rework, but I think they went a little too overboard, and I'm hoping that they'll bring the number down a little bit, and it should be fine. I think even with 50%, it's going to be, in some builds, you're not going to want to run it, and I think that's good that there is a time where you don't want to run it. I think 80% is just a little bit too much. That being said, what about the movement speed? The movement speed change is horrible. I think it systematically and categorically fits every definition of failure you could think of. Because the reason that they're implementing this change is they want to prevent people from tapping the power to quote-unquote fake out survivors, right? Which that's not even, I won't talk about if people actually did that or if that's why people tapped. That's their logic for it, and the change that they implemented doesn't fix that. In fact, it makes it worse, because now, with how they implemented the change, you are slowed more when you go for a shot than when you fake, because you can still quickly like just tap your power and reset your hallucination and fake out the survivor and make them dodge if behavior really thinks that's what that's for. You know, you can still do that just fine. You can tap just fine. The only time this speed penalty kicking in sooner is going to affect you is when you're trying to line up a shot, and it feels so backwards to be rewarding people for faking and punishing people for going for shots. And I really think they need to do something else if that's their goal, because this is not it, and that's not how this is going to play out. Personally, I'd like my fatigue system. I recommended in my last video. If they don't want to do my fatigue system, what they could do is they could do something like where when you cancel your UVX without shooting, that's when you get the longer slowdown. Because then they're actually targeting what they want to target, and they're not hitting everything but people who try and use the power to fake. That is my personal take on that, at least. And as for the UI and the visual effects change, I don't think that these succeed at what they're trying to do either. The UI change is good for the most part, but if you look down in the bottom left, there's the first icon after the UVX icon is completely redundant. I don't see why that needs to exist. I kind of hope that they get rid of that. But as for the hallucination counter and the hallucination timer and the teleport timer, those are perfect. I got no complaints about those. I like the icons for them. No complaints about those. Just remove that first icon and everything should be good. Perfect change without that first icon. As for the visual effects, as in like when you hit a survivor and the sound effect change. Sound effect change, I don't like the new sound. I like the old sound better, but I mean, whatever, you know, it doesn't affect gameplay at all, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. What I am going to talk about is I am going to talk about how now you have no visual way of telling how long a survivor is hindered for. Because beforehand you had that kind of like purple goo on them that would last, and you could see that and know, okay, they're still hindered, or they're no longer hindered, and you could use that information and play around it. However, now with that effect being applied to when a survivor is weakened, not only is that redundant, because the survivor already glows that kind of purplish pinkish color when they're weakened, even if they're not revealing you, and then it gets a lot brighter when they're revealing you. Well, now they also have that goo texture on them, and you can't even see it over the glow. You know, over the glow, and it's completely redundant. So I don't think that was a good change. I hope they revert that change as well. I get what they're trying to go for, but I think that that's going to have the opposite effect, once again, where they're trying to make things better for new players, but all they're really doing is taking away information from all players. So I hope that's not what they do. And finally, we've got the finisher Mori change. I didn't talk about this in my first video, because to be honest, I completely forgot about it. I'm going to say I like having Cypress Mori base kit. You know, I don't use Moris, like, ever, so being able to see a Mori is cool. I'm also very excited about the prospect of having cosmetic Moris, like new Moris that you can buy. I think that'd be pretty cool. There's a lot of good potential with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing that, because let's face it, that's why this change is being pushed, even though people don't like it. That being said, the Mori offerings themselves cannot stay as is, because one, the reward is not enough. 30,000 for Moriing the final survivor is less than you will get in an average game than if you burn a cake. It's about equal, but if you have an above average game, it ends up being less. The only time you get more points for burning a Mori than just burning like an anniversary cake, right, is when you are just hardcore ending the game in 1 minute 4-man slugging. And slugging for the 4K is something that people don't like to begin with, but now anytime there's a Mori, you're almost guaranteed to have that happen, because that killer, in order to get these bonus blood points, right, they have to Mori the final survivor. So they're going to do everything in their power to ensure that they Mori that final survivor. So I really want to say you need to increase the amount of blood points, because the Moris don't give nearly enough to be worth it. But at the same time, if they do that, then more people are going to be slugging for the 4K, and overall it's going to lead to a worse experience for everyone. Because, you know, doing this gate puppy guarding like you're seeing on screen now, or slugging for the 4K or whatever, it's not really fun for anyone, and it's just kind of a slow point in the game, and it drags everything down. I don't know what they could do with it, because they could make it to where Ivory's let you Mori a second survivor and Ebony's let you Mori all 4, but then what does the Cypress do? Does the Cypress become the blood point offering? Because that doesn't change anything either. And honestly, I'm okay with getting rid of the offerings that are allowing you to get a 4K Mori, because I think 4K Moris should be something that you have to earn, whether it be Rancor, Devour Hope, whatever. I think they're more special if you have to earn them, and you didn't earn them by buying something that costs 7,000 blood points in the blood weapon and then burning it, you know. That's my personal opinion. I think that changing it to be something that's harder to get is cool. Also, the thing with like, objects that block the Mori fading out of view, that doesn't work. That straight up just doesn't work. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it does not work. I'm gonna assume it's bugged, give behavior the benefit of the doubt, say yes, they do have something that will do that and it's just not on PTB for whatever reason. But if it is on PTB, I've never seen it work. And I've used the Mori pretty much every match that I played except for one. Granted, I only got to play 5 matches because the queues are awful, and a lot of people DC'd anytime they saw the Mori, even though the Mori, you know, doesn't matter anymore, whatever. Uh, yeah, I don't know. The whole PTB is so strange. As for perks, I don't think I've talked about perks. Thwack is somehow been nerfed, at least for Unknown, because the range got reduced, and on top of that, it no longer gives the auras, it's only the snapshot aura from the Scream, which is a massive downgrade, because those auras combined with Lethal Pursuer were really nice. But now it's just a Scream perk, so I don't think it's going to be very good on Unknown, unfortunately. There are some killers that are going to get some good value from it. I don't think Unknown's one of them. However, Zancian Tactics and Lethal Pursuer and Predator are going to be an amazing build. Pair that with Friends to the End, and I think we might be seeing a new genuine aura meta for Unknown with these perks, as long as they stay the way that they are on the PTB when they go live. Which, if we're being honest with ourselves, that's not going to happen because Nurse is too strong with all this aura reading, and they're going to gut these perks just like they did every other cool aura perk. Anyways, as it is right now on PTB, this combo is really fun, and when you pair it with Milk, you can play around every palette on the map as long as this is not a strict God palette, and even then most God palettes you can play around now, which is super crazy, and is a lot of fun to play, and it's a lot of fun to play against as well, at least from what I can tell from watching like the TTVs that I got matched up against in my time. And it is, all in all, I like Zancian Tactics, I like Predator, I like those changes. Thwack getting nerfed is a little disappointing. I hope they bring back the aura reading. If they bring back the aura reading, Thwack is going to be an incredible perk, but they got rid of that, so as of right now it's kind of mid. And really that's all the relevant perk changes. Yeah, there was a bunch of Survivor changes, and there was a bunch of other killer perk changes, but really these are the only ones that matter for Unknown. I'm glad the changes weren't as severe as we thought they were going to be, as I thought they were going to be. I wish they had just given us these numbers upright, but seeing how large some of these numbers are, I can see why they didn't, because the panic and the freak out would have been worse, I think. I still don't like most of these changes, you know, but what can you do?